Oh, don't you dare look back.
Hey y'all, so today we're going to be talking about the scientific method, and through this video we're going to go through each step that you're going to need to know to do your own science fair project. We're going to do an example a little later on in the video, so let's get started. So we're going to start by asking what is the scientific method, and it's the process of asking and answering a question through experimenting, and there are several steps and we're going to talk through all of them, and we're going to start with the first one and end up with the conclusion and the summary at the end. So first you're going to think about it, you're going to come up with a question that you want to know more about, and then you're going to do some background research to make sure you can test your experiment. Next, you want to form your hypothesis, and that is your best estimation of what's going to happen throughout your experiment. So in this portion, you're going to do your experimental design, and that's listing your independent variable, which is what's being changed, your dependent variable, which is what's being measured, and your constant variable, which stays the same throughout the entire experiment. Next, you're going to start your procedure, and this is very important, and this is simply writing down your directions, and write them down in detail so you know exactly what you're going to do to carry out your project. Next, you're going to list your materials because it's important for scientists to be prepared. You're going to make a list for everything you need, and you're going to make sure that you can get access to these materials in order to do your experiment. Next, you're going to test your experiment, and that means to demonstrate your hypothesis to see if you're right or wrong. Then you're going to stop and ask yourself, is my procedure working? If it is, continue with the rest of your steps and continue your test. If not, you may want to go back and experiment again. Next, you're going to analyze your data, and this means that you're going to write everything down that you've recorded from your experiment. Write down the results, write down exactly what has happened and what data you've gathered. And finally, you're going to conclude. You're going to give us a summary of your results and state whether your hypothesis was supported or not supported. And then you're going to kind of summarize your project. So now we're going to put the scientific method into practice and do an example of our own, and at the end you'll be given further instructions as to what to do for your own project. So we want to know how we can tell how much fat is in each different type of milk, and we're going to experiment to see how much is in each and how it reacts to dish soap. So our question for experimentation is, how will different types of milk respond to the dish soap? So we have found our question, now we do background research, and this is simple, and you see some of my points here. I'm not going to read them all off to you, but I just Googled a couple things to make sure that I know that this experiment can be tested. Now we're going to tell our hypothesis. So our hypothesis is, if we put liquid soap in different types of milk that have a distinct amount of fat, then there will be a different chemical reaction in each one because of the different fat contents. And you want to make sure that in your hypothesis you have an if-then statement. Now you see we've listed our experimental design, all of our variables. The kinds of milk is the independent, the amount of fat is the dependent, and the amount of milk in each bowl and the milk temperature is the constant. So as you see here, this is our procedure, and I'm not going to read it all to you, but you see this is a detailed list, step by step, of what we're going to do, and I'll give you a little bit of time to look at this. Feel free to pause the video and make note of how detailed this is. Next, we're going to list our materials, and these are the materials we're going to need to carry out this project, and they're also in detail and tell us how much we're going to need. Now we're actually going to conduct our experiment, and if we were actually doing it, we would get all our materials and actually test it at this point and see if our hypothesis is true or not. And at this point, we would see that our hypothesis is working and it is true, so we're going to keep going and make the conclusion. Now we're to the end of our project. We've got all our data. Now we're going to analyze it. And as you see here, I've done some analysis, and you will do the same in your project. And I've written down all of my results, and I'm ready to conclude and see if my hypothesis was supported. So now we conclude and share, and we see that our hypothesis was supported, and our hypothesis states that there will be a chemical reaction with the soap and food coloring, and there was. We didn't really do the experiment, but as proven, and I've done this experiment in the past, I see that it has been stated true. Now it's your turn to be the scientist, and you're going to do a mini science fair project. There's some information right here, but there's also more on the next couple of slides, and you're going to share whatever you find, whatever you decide that can be researched, you're going to share it with the class. And here I've given you some important information. I'm giving you the due date of January 10th. You're going to present it to the class, and you're going to make sure your research and steps are on a poster board or something that the class can see, and you're going to make it look really neat and colorful. We're going to work really hard on these and add some pictures of you doing the steps and make sure all your steps are in order on the board. And this is how I want your science fair project to be laid out. So let's go by this example to do our project.
It might seem